Hello everybody, this is Train King James here, yet again with another seasonal tier list. And if you're wondering, why am I doing another one so soon after we finish Season 7, it's because we have a bit of a mini-series here. This is the Jack and the Pack, or Jack and the Sodor Construction Team, mini-series here, that takes place around the time of Season 7. So, we have 13 episodes. This will be by far the shortest tier list we'll do, so we'll try to keep it brief. So, without further ado, let us go through these episodes. And I actually managed to order the episodes at the bottom here rather than just trying to find them. I think this is actually a little bit easier. I don't know why I never thought to do this before. But with that, we'll start with our first episode, A Visit from Thomas. And I think this episode is a solid A tier. It's a nice kind of introduction to this spin-off series. It connects Thomas and the Fat Controller to these characters. And, we get to meet a lot of the Pack characters, see them in their working environment. And watching these Pack episodes are so cool because they're filmed so differently than other Thomas episodes. Like, a lot of the footage is sped up because, a lot of these characters are obviously move slowly because they're props and it's hard for them to move at higher speeds. But it's kind of got this almost stop-motion-y effect to it, and it's kind of cool. Seeing all the different characters, and Oliver's pretty cool because he has all these different attachments that we see at various points in the series. And we see his chisel in this episode, we see his bucket, and we'll see other things in other episodes that he gets. Yeah, other than that, this is a solid episode. The one thing I don't like about the Pack episodes is some of the titles. Like, A Visit from Thomas has almost nothing to do with the story. Like, yeah, he visits, but, Thomas doesn't even say anything the whole time. He shows up, he brings the characters, he brings the Fat Controller there, and then leaves. The stories still has a lot more that happens after Thomas visits. Its original title, Oliver Soares, is much better. I don't think this is the weakest one, but it's definitely not the best one. Then we have Jack Owns Up, and this episode, I think, is the weakest of the spinoff. Just feels kind of the most pointless of the group. I'm not entirely sure what the Pack's doing. They go to the supply yard, but they're just kind of, shuffling about. I mean, half the characters there aren't going to do anything. If you're going to the supply yard, you're probably going to take someone like Kelly. You're going to take someone like maybe Max and Monty to collect dirt. Oliver, Jack, Alfie, Isabella. I'm not sure why Ned's there. Maybe just shuffle dirt, but, we never see him do it. Byron's there for some reason. I don't know. I think it's just one of those, meh episodes. It's definitely the most meh of the group. It's alright, it's fine. And we go from probably the weakest to arguably one of the strongest, and that is On Site with Thomas. I love that we get to see Patrick in this episode. This is really the only one he gets featured in, but he's a fun character. And again, we see a lot of the Pack in this. A lot of the Pack in this episode. A lot of the characters get featured. We get to see their personalities as they clash with one another. It's kind of our first true introduction to both Max and Monty together. In Season 6, we only had Max, so that's kind of cool. And we see, a really fun accident with really cool stunts. But yeah, all in all, really fun episode. Then we have Percy's Scary Tale, another poorly named episode, but a solid one. I kind of like the idea of the one-eyed truck story, but the thing I don't like about it is they reveal very quickly what the one-eyed truck is when Max and Monty see it. It's supposed to be Thomas, and the second we hear the whistle, it's well, that's obviously Thomas. I think it'd be great if we just saw the light and we didn't hear the whistle, because I think that would add an edge of ooh, that's kind of freaky. What is that? What could this one-eyed truck thing be? And maybe they did that so it's not super scary for kids, but I don't know, it's kind of weak to not do that. So a little bit of a mixed bag here to start, but then we get to Kelly's Windy Day, which I think is another strong episode. And this episode kind of reminds me a lot of The Old Bridge. Its character has a fairly traumatic thing happen to them and they're scared. But I think where this episode goes right, where The Old Bridge goes wrong, is it kind of makes sense for Kelly. Now, Kelly's an experienced character too, similar to Scarlett. But Kelly was nervous at the beginning of this episode because he was well aware of how dangerous wind can be for a crane. And then something bad happens to Kelly, and he's damaged, and he feels bad about it. But, he's finally, like, he's coaxed out of his shed the second he's needed for a job, and this job is a rescue. It's not like he's refusing to work. He just had to be repaired, and once he's done repaired, oh, you have to go rescue Isabella. And something about the old lady in this episode whose piano's being rescued along with Isabella, I don't know, she just reminds me of B. Arthur, but that's, but I don't know, I just found her funny. She had some great facial expressions, stuff like that, but yeah. She was kind of a funny character without having to do too much. But yeah, really cool episode, some nice action in it. And then we have A Happy Day for Percy, which is another really poorly named episode, but a good one about Byron. Doesn't get a ton of, Byron does not get a ton of focus in this spin-off. There were, I think, episodes that were going to show him more that got canceled. But I'm going to put this episode in B tier. I really like his rescue of Alfie. It's a really creative rescue. So let's start here. Then we have A Tale for Thomas. Again, with these bad titles, man. Oh my goodness. Just kind of a weaker title. But again, it is nice to see Maximani's antics. Solid B tier episode. Nothing crazy happens in this one, but really fun episode. I like the characters trying to prop up the tree together. One thing you do notice, Max and Monty do have a theme, and it's interesting that they're like one of the few characters in this spinoff that gets one. Because you have like the main pack theme, but then you have like Max and Monty, which is like this motif of like a tuba in the background, or like low brass instruments doing this bum 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 bum. It's nice to hear that theme. It's nice that they do get a theme here, especially at this time. The characters typically weren't getting their own themes, so it is nice to see Max and Monty get one. Or at least a motif that plays. Thomas and the Moles. Ugh, the title again. But this is actually, if my mouse would let me select it, this is actually a A-tier episode. I do enjoy this one. I like Buster as a character. I kind of like the acknowledge, like, yeah, steamrollers are not going to be used often on jobs. And, you know, you feel bad for Buster. But, again, Buster is... You get to see his personality. You know, he just wants to help out. He just wants to enjoy himself, and it's kind of goofy, but, you know, I love the moles in this episode. For whatever reason, they're, like, sentient and alive, and they, like, speak. I don't know, I guess it's just the episode's form of comedy, but, you know, really nice episode. Percy helps out. Probably the weakest title of all of the pack episodes, but a solid episode about Nelson rescuing Thomas. Like, that's what I mean, like, Percy's barely in this episode, and Percy doesn't help out until the very end. So, just kind of a weaker episode title, but again, like, I'm not spending too much time on the episodes, because the episodes themselves are overall very solid, but there are some really cool dynamics that happen, but for the most part, there's not a lot to talk about here. I do like the idea that, like, yeah, I kind of like the idea of someone whose job it is to carry others to be like, maybe I want to be carried for a change. And I do like that Nelson gets to live out his dream. And again, Nelson, similar to Byron, didn't get a ton of featuring in this spin-off. So I do like that, you know, he gets his opportunity here. Tortoise in the Hare, classic retelling of the, I think it's Aesop's Fable. I think that's who wrote it. But classic retelling with Max and Monty and Buster. Nice to see Buster get another story. And I think that's going to go in A tier. One of my favorite episodes of the spin-off. I really enjoyed this one. I like the way the story plays out. I like how Max and Monty are used. Really enjoy this next entry here. Thomas's Trusty Friend. It's probably my second favorite. It's very close between On Site with Thomas and Thomas's Trusty Friend. It sucks that most of these episodes have to be named after Thomas and Percy for them to be marketable, but it's just like, man, I love the, you know, the tower collapse scene and all the destruction. Again, we get to see Oliver with more gadgets and tools, so really fun episode to see him there with that. I love the dynamic between Oliver and Ned. Nice to see Ned get some more featuring after his season 6 appearances. Again, Oliver's a fun character. I think my favorite pack characters either Ned, Oliver, and Buster. It's one of those three, but I don't know. I like those three. Those episodes have been the most enjoyable overall. Then we have Alfie Has Kittens, which is an episode about Alfie being small. I really enjoy this one. I think this is probably one of the better titles of the spinoff. One, because it doesn't have to deal with, you know, one of like Thomas or Percy being in the title and taking the spot. I think this is a solid overall episode. I like the idea of Alfie being the only one to save and rescue the kittens because he's too small and they put his size to good use. I like that we get to see Oliver with another new attachment. I really like all the, I just really like all the demolition scenes that the pack has. I like Alfie's rescue scene. I like how climactic that is and how like dirty and dusty and like how things are collapsing and all that stuff. I don't know why I like Michael Brandon's narration of the cats, like the meow, 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 all that stuff. It's just funny. Then we have Mud Glorious Mud, which is a solid ending to the pack episodes. Really like that Isabella gets some featuring. She's kind of been used sparingly in this series. I love how dirty all the characters get. It's just a really fun, nicely detailed weather-related episode. So, all in all, that wraps up the pack episodes. Clearly not a very long tier list video. When we next talk, we'll be covering Season 8, and we'll be in a completely different era of Thomas. But yeah, that's about it. So with that, this is Train King James signing off with yet another tier list video. So long, guys.